we issue a perpetual living will. Okay? We just take it all back. So they are complex documents. For a lot of people, they are initially not understandable because the mind programming can't get it. But progressively, and we have witnessed this in the last several years, that starts breaking down. The merger of your being with your mind and your physical body starts taking place. You start becoming one and equal with all of that and becoming the directive principle. That's the same as saying having capacity. So it's a process of self-transformation. It's not law, it's not legal. You don't have to study codes and statutes. You will become aware of them. But I've had a lot of people over the years say, I don't want to study law, it's so complex. But here's how it really goes. All of their codes, and by the way, when you're a civilly dead entity, which is what the franchise is, you're considered a decedent estate without a will. And when you do certain things like apply for a driver's license or put a 1040, those are called codicils, which is an addition to a will. And the root of that is code. So all the codes are nothing more than attachments as a codicil to a will that you had nothing to do with creating. So when you sever the attachment of being the bonded surety to that, you're not those are not incumbent upon you. So in the United States, there's 60, 80, 100 million codes and statutes. And if you think you have to study law and figure out all that crap, you don't. You just need to embody some very simple principles. Those principles, among other things, but in a significant way, are embodied in something called the maxims of equity. And true equity, which means balance, which means equality, which means fairness, all those principles that we want to see exist in the world. If you're a bankrupt, you have no access to it. Okay, if you study regular law at a law school, they'll tell you all of that was merged from the 1870s to the 1930s, and now it's all in a civil system, civil procedure. But that's a procedure for the dead. Do you ever hear the phrase from the Bible, let the dead tend to the dead or bury the dead? Okay. It's found at Mark chapter 8, verse 22. Prior to that, Jesus is amongst all the people, and all those who are suffering from leprosy and other diseases are trying to get him to heal them. Okay? And he's basically saying, you need to heal yourself. And then just before verse 22, one of the disciples says, I need to go tend to my father because he's dying. And Jesus says, in the next verse, number 22, let the dead bury the dead. This whole system is a cult of death, controlled by Osiris with that scale that you will find on the IRS logo. The judges and the cops and the IRS agents are all merchants of death. They're all part of the Grim Reaper. And if you want to be harvested into death, you can go there. This has nothing to do with being saved by Jesus or the Bible or anything else. It's the way the system is constructed. It's right there. So he says, let the dead tend to the dead. If you engage with them in the court or in commercial process, the pieces of paper you call money and etc., then you are engaged in belligerent acts and you can be suppressed as an enemy combatant. That's what the courts are, that's what the codes and statutes are, that's what it all is. Because they are tending to you because you are dead. They are extracting your life force. They do that to us individually, they do it on a planetary scale. And don't forget, they are we. We're doing it to ourselves. The whole monetary system is extractive, consumptive, and exploitive. That's why this earth is dying right now. So he said, let the dead tend to the dead. The very next verse, he's in a boat on the Sea of Commerce. And the disciples get in with him. And the waters start going like this. These are the disrupted waters of commerce. This is all the debt and liability that you think is real. Money, currency, the current of the sea flowing through the banks of the river, the electrical current, the masculine principle running through our bodies. It's all the same. So he's in this boat floating on the sea of commerce, and they're afraid they're going to go down, go under the waters of commerce, be lost at sea. That's why the papacy is also called the Holy See. S-E-E-S-E-A-C for commerce. You are all lost in the sea of commerce. You are on the unstable, disrupted waters of commerce, which is what they want you to be. So finally, they can't do it, and they say to Jesus as the master, please, settle it. He just says, settle. To do a status correction process is to settle all the claims and liabilities against your life force, your living being, to settle the waters of commerce, to remove yourself from the field of battle. So 4 years ago, we sent a peace treaty to the Holy See and said, if you don't respond, that's a presumption of acceptance, because silence is acceptance. And they haven't responded since. Okay, so we have a peace treaty with the Holy See. We have withdrawn ourselves from the field of battle, and we now stand as peace. That's what we all need to do. So our status correction process is about removing ourselves from being lost in the sea of commerce, removing ourselves from the field of battle, and the presumption of consent to be the bonded surety, and the presumption that we are dead. That's what it really means to walk into life in the Bible. It has nothing to do with, ascending or anything else. It means simply to settle the waters of the sea of commerce and not be a ghost or an apparition who gets summons to their court, which is a seance. That's why it's called a summons. Who gets summons? The ghosts, the dead beings. Okay? When you sign up and you voluntarily apply for a driver's license, you're applying to be a driver in commerce, to operate in interstate commerce, which in the corporate constitution, they have control over interstate commerce. We are a state, in fact. We are an estate. But then we bind ourselves to be a driver in commerce in their system. And we are a registered agent to receive service of process of their corporate paper, which is only an offer to contract to bond us to more debt. Okay? This is just an introduction. So let me keep on throwing those little juicy morsels out and get down to the basics. So that's what Pantera is. We are a private society. We have a fair amount of correspondence with the IRS, with courts, state and federal, numerous other corporate commercial agencies that cooperate with us. We tell them to write us to where we are, and they identify us as our court and all the rest of it, because they know we are a superior authority to them. They're dead after all. They're fictions. Can a ghost really hurt you? No, but if you believe it can and you accept its contract, then in this world, the cult of death, it will. So that's who we are as a society. A society has the capacity to create its own jurisdiction, its own law form, its own court, its own treasury, essentially its own bank. We must become our own bank. So as good as Bitcoin and all of the other cryptocurrencies are as a transitional stepping stone, they're still modeled after the same model. They're not a parity monetary system. Parity means a par system. 1 unit of measure equals 1 unit of value. So Bitcoin's going to go up. That's not a parity system. It's very unstable. It's a great transitional system, but we need to be our own bank, create our own monetary structure based on life, stability, and all the rest of it. And I'm going to close with that in about 10 minutes. And I'll wrap that up. Maybe 20 or 30 minutes. But hold that thought, okay? But the point is that a private society has the capacity and hundreds of years of precedent to be an ecclesiastical body in the true sense of a body of the congregation, to have its own law form, and to be a superior authority. Ecclesiastical law is the highest law on the planet. So Pantera is that. It's not a religion. It's not a cult or anything like that. It's non-hierarchical and it's non-denominational. So we have lots of people who are Christians and Buddhists and Hindus and New Agers and stuff like that. And that's perfectly fine. Everybody's going at their own level, their own pace. But what brings us together is the basic principles. If you go on the PanteraPCA.org website, you will see who and what we are. Our foundational documents are there. One of them is something I wrote about 16 years ago called a Declaration of Intention. And it's very simple. Our Declaration of Intention is to stand for life, to be here to support everything that enhances life, and to be stewards of the value and the resources that come into our purview for the benefit of all life, to be of service to life. Not in servitude, but in service. That's why we're a mutual benefit society. That's why my wife and I created it 15, 16 years ago. And that's why our now team and our membership, which is about active 200, more or less, 400 to 450 who are enrolled as members, but growing significantly. We've kept it very much under wraps. This is kind of our coming out, our Sweet 16 party, or our 15 años in Mexico. It's like, okay, we're ready to come out because we've done all the groundwork. We've created the architecture for our data systems, for our court. We keep everything private within our court. We're creating a body of evidence. And when I did the interview with Jeff, we had the usual polemics, the polarizers, the haters come on and say, oh, he'll take you down the wrong road. He doesn't know what he's talking about and so forth. But our response to it was, how do you even know that? It's a 1 hour interview, you know, and it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It's taken me 55 years so far. How long have they been doing that? I don't want to go into they, blah, 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 because I don't want to go into polarity, because that is our own internal enemy. But there are people who will, whether they're doing it in their own nature, or they're purposeful disinformation or trolls or whatever, it really doesn't matter. The point is, it's a continuum. We're still perfecting this. We still have to perfect the record. So the real point is our court of the ecclesia that we established 4 years ago is the archival permanent record. It's a court of record. A court of record is a term in common law. A court is where the sovereign sojourns to establish the body of evidence. And if there is a claim or a transgression against his law, the sovereign, then the court is there to put the evidence in place and have the defendant or defendants have a forum to bring their evidence. And if the defendant is a man of the land, a prince or a qualified elector who has law and can actually establish a common law venue, because venue means the county from which the jury is derived. Okay, and a county is a established place of the land. It goes back to the word count, because a count was of the aristocracy, because he was a landlord under an oath of fealty to the sovereign lord, the king, the crown. So, but now they've corporatized that. So we have corporate counties. But in law, amongst living beings, the venue is where we derive the county of living men and women. So what we've created in our court as a court of record is the venue in which we can actually seat a true grand jury, because we have standing to state and stake claim on the land as private American nationals, because we've corrected our status. And so a court of record is when a sovereign sojourns to establish his or her court and create a court of record where the evidence is put on the record and the defendants can come to defend themselves and derive a jury as a jury of his peers. And that is the counterbalance to the law, because the sovereign is the law. But if the sovereign is the law without any counterbalance, then he is a tyrant and a dictator. That's the real essence of the Magna Carta. So that is what we established as our court. So there are checks and balances, a real, true republic form where everybody is truly an anarchist or a law unto him or herself and has the capacity to establish his law. And we operate on one law, which is exalt all life and honor the life force in all beings. You don't need any other laws but that. So if somebody says, well, I'm a sovereign, I can dump chemicals on in the river above you, well, you're harming my life force. If you think about it, that's the only law that we need to exist, to come together cooperatively, as was talked about this morning. So we have established our court of record, and we are building an evidentiary body to bind the United States as a, not necessarily an adversary, but also not in commercial law. And when the time is right, we will establish the record by that evidentiary body of the many dozens of people now, which soon, and we are prepared for it, we expect hundreds and thousands to be doing to perfect your status, so that we can actually stand on the land and perfect the body and the record and hold them accountable in a peaceful manner, because otherwise we're a belligerent. And under the rules of military occupation and the rules of usufruct, which we don't have time to go into, the bottom line is it is their absolute international treaty duty, when you are not an enemy belligerent, to do certain things, to maintain the civil body. We have the capacity to direct and command them to do that. But we're just a small group now. We need to build the numbers. So that basically is status correction. Gemstone was established 3 years ago. It's an acronym for the words Global Educational Media, Serving the One, based on service to the one, the unified being or spirit that we all are. And basically it's our private forum for members only. And it's not a secret society as some have challenged us with. It's basically to create and maintain the separation of private versus public. There's a lot of detail about other aspects of the law, the public-private. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see some of the beginning of the foundational series that talk about private and public, contract law, jurisdiction, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the basic fundamentals.
What's your YouTube?
Gemstone University. So that's why we're private. That's why we're members only. We don't allow the public in. The public is the civil body. It's the dead fiction. Why would we let death through our door? Not interested in that. So we have the general education member level, which is general education. Yes, there's a lot of things there that you can find on the internet, but I've taken the distillation of what I've gathered for 50 years and our whole team and our current active membership of at least about 75 to 100 people that we're building that as an integrated, succinct way to educate people and open all of this up so you don't have to spend 25 or 50 years doing it. Even if you understand a lot of what I'm talking about, there's elements there that integrate it, how it all fits together. Everything that I've touched on in this little talk. Then there's 2 premium courses, status correction and estate structure, to create your new estate. At some point we're going to merge and integrate that. They're basically already almost merged and complementary and so forth, but they're still separate. For one, there are people who don't want to, or at least now are not going to do a status correction course, but they have a project or something that they want to do or you want to do. Okay, the estate structure is how you can achieve the privacy to create your own society, your own office that holds the assets that belong to the society, protected by the unassailable right, not a civil right, but a substantive right of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, all those things that in the civil body are being destroyed, because civil rights are only privileges the Lord can give and the Lord can take away. You've noticed the Lord is now taking away. Okay, so the estate structure premium course is to how to embody or hold your vision, what you want to create, without having to take the time, which can take a year or longer, to do the status correction process. Now, we, in the last year, were introduced to the fact that in the Bahamas, excuse me, in the Bahamas, that when it became independent in the 60s, adopted the entirety of the English law form from England, which had been its colonial master. With that came the basis of the private societies. They characterize it as something called a friendly society. That's why the Quakers call themselves a society of friends. Essentially another way of saying a mutual benefit society. The uniqueness of a friendly society in the Bahamas is, as I said, a society can have its own law form, its own court, its own jurisdiction, and its own bank, its own private treasury. In the Bahamas, you are actually able to act as a private bank. So we have chartered a friendly society. It is up and active. It is a private bank. So we have truly the best banking solution for privacy and protection on the planet. And I say that humbly and just with all due humility in the fact that a lot of people have a lot of solutions out there, but nothing can penetrate this. Because if you come into the Pantera Society and you create an estate structure, or you go through our estate structure course, you create your own society and something called a corporation sole, which is a singular office which holds the assets of your society, and then it can create trusts and any other kind of entity to do even your commercial activity, your businesses or foundations or whatever. That's what you can do with our estate structure. And so you create a trust, a private contract, not a statutory trust in their system, that is impenetrable as well, because it's a contract. And even in their system, the paramount phrase is no state can impair the obligations of contracts. They did that because we've contracted all of our substantive rights away, so they don't want us, and we've accepted the consideration, which is all the benefits, Social Security, blah, 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 all that. So it's an equal contract, and that's what is held against one. If you're a sovereign, you have the right to contract away your rights, which you've done. But you can timely object when you come to the understanding that, there are certain clauses you weren't aware of, so you can rescind all of that. So the absolute paramount right to contract is always there. So the private foreign trust, foreign as being foreign from the United States or Australia or any other entity, is created by private contract. That's the entity that becomes a member of the friendly society and has an account in that bank. And nothing can penetrate the privacy of the records of the members of a friendly society in the Bahamas. Not FATCA, not IRS, nothing. Okay? And once you understand how to operate it, how to be the conductor in the center of your own orchestra. So you have your society and your corporation soul and your trust and the this and the that, and you learn how to harmonize it and blend it and direct it, which I have done for 25 years. It can't be touched. And as a private society, friendly society in the Bahamas, able to bank with other banks, what's inside that is absolutely impenetrable. It cannot be touched. So our private records will be very secure, in which you can operate your private society, your trust, etc., because you are the overseer. You are the directive principle of that. And until you fully walk into being fully embodied, which none of us have done, not me, not anybody, that's to come. Once we've done that, we still need to use the outpictured structure, and suffice to say that I've perfected my knowledge and understanding and integration of how to do this in the most absolute ideal way to protect ourselves while the system goes into its collapse. It's already into it, but continues in its collapse mode. This enables us to hold our visions and our purposes and our intentions in a private and secure and impenetrable structure within a layered structure that's got 4 or 5 firewalls that cannot be breached. To hold our assets, to embody and manifest our purposes and our visions, all within the containment of a private society that we are doing this together with. That's what Pantera de Oro Private Society is, okay? Gemstone is our university, as I've explained, and now we're birthing, many of you have looked at our master plan. It's over there. It's on the website, publicly accessible. And it's called a master plan to build something else, which is the Global Media Alliance. Because we all know that media communication, side by side with education, is the paramount tool for us to awaken humanity. Okay? It's already happening, but a big problem is that almost all of those alternative media people are, one, bonded sureties to bankrupt franchises and or operating as corporations. If they're doing that, every single thing they are creating, including intellectual property, text, internet, websites, you name it, belongs to the corporation under the rules of military occupation and usufruct and all these things that you will learn about if you choose to come on board with us. That's the problem. That's why all those people I told you about over the years, they weren't necessarily creating corporations. They knew better than that, but they were still bonded sureties. That's why they all went to prison. That's why not all obviously, but a lot of the alternative media can be attacked because they're still under that containment field. Their property is chattel property, including their bodies, their minds, everything, and it's owned by the state. So our education process will assist those in the alternative media to move out of that, to disconnect from that. You don't have to do the status correction, but sooner or later, likely you probably will. But even if someone doesn't, moving out of that corporate form is absolutely necessary. So a global media alliance is posited as the framework in which we can assist everybody in media, every voice, every blogger, et cetera, and come together as a unified voice on this planet to take us all to the next level of what we are here to do, which is to wake up the rest of the sleeping masses, okay? Because we don't need all 7 billion, but we do need more than the few hundred that are here. And we need to protect those who are on the front lines. This is the way to do it. So the combination of the banking solution, the estate structure, the status correction, the society, and all of that as an integrated whole is what we have perfected in order to do what we're here to do, individually and collectively. With the bank, interestingly, as I said, things are showing up in such perfection of timing, it's fabulous. I would love to share it with you, but not today. But I will, and if you want to become a member, you'll learn about it very quickly. Things are showing up at an incredible pace. So I talked about Bitcoin, parity system, currency system. That's what we need, because we need to merge our Ba and our Ka and become a singularity, to be creation once again, to be have the capacity to create this world the way we want to create it. We are continuing to project our creator capacity into this matrix hologram, thinking that their pieces of paper, their electronics is what we need to create with, okay? But we don't need that. We will need a facility to mobilize a flow of currency and also to accelerate the pace by which we liquidate and extinguish the debts and the liabilities and the claims against that franchise and reduce the public debt until it is zeroed out. We have the ability to do that. I know how to do that. Many of the Pantera members know how to do that. We can teach you how to do that and become a force to really do that. In the master plan, I talk about a principle that I became aware of many, many years ago. It's called the transfer mechanism and the receptacle. Because this containment field, this civitas that we've projected and allowed ourselves to be contained within, projected our life force into, holds a lot of energy. That's all money is. It's an energy containment field.